Benjamin Franklin once expressed that without continual growth and change, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Modern administrators and teachers are continually encouraging their students to grow and achieve on an educational level, but still operate on an extremely outdated agrarian calendar. Simply put, the agrarian calendar can't compete with the benefits of that of the year-round calendar. Students who are able to operate on the year-round calendar are given the opportunity to have a more full, well-rounded education opposed to those who don't. And that's the ethical dilemma that we're running into. Kids are going on summer vacation, and they're losing so much of their education. And when they come back in the fall, they essentially have to be retaught so much of their course content. So that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at how summer vacation affects student learning. We're going to talk about formats of year-round schools and how different formats can be implemented for different districts and areas. And then we're going to look at common problems with the year-round calendar. Much like the agrarian calendar, it does come with some caveats, though they outweigh that of the traditional calendar. And then finally, we're going to look at LEP classes specific to this area, and then how funding comes for year-round programs. So the typical agrarian calendar runs on 9-month on, 3-month off, where students come in the fall and then they are out in spring. And that's when summer vacation hits and the summer slide begins to happen. And this term, the summer slide, was recently coined by Emily Gallahan, who did a study that showed that testing done in May at the end of the school year compared to testing done the following of the year in fall showed that over the summer a student can lose up to an entire year's worth of education that they were already taught. So that's not only a waste of funding, but it's a waste of time and materials. And then your typical agrarian calendar can also be super taxing, both mentally and physically, on both staff and students, because it's day after day they're going to and from school and don't really have a break to recharge. And the frequent breaks that year-round school offers make it possible for students to take breaks, and they offer remediation courses on those breaks so that there's no need for summer school or night school that the typical agrarian calendar would accommodate for. We have a few forms of year-round schools. You can have the 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, the 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off, or the 12 weeks on, 4 weeks off. And each calendar can be kind of cocktailed specifically for the district or school that's implementing it. And that's kind of the first step that those schools will take. They'll look at holidays, they'll look at teacher work days, they'll look at maybe trips that a school is taking, and they'll all work those into the breaks so that there aren't significant portions of instruction time that a student's going to miss, or that students can be in their seats for the amount of allotted state time that they need to be. And then there are some common problems with year-round school, specifically childcare. That's something that has caused this kind of program, this year-round program, to fail in the past, because it may be difficult to get a child into childcare for just a matter of weeks on their off weeks. But a research study down in Jackson showed that when entire communities banded together and made the conversion over to year-round schools, that it was much easier for parents to find childcare, because programs for youth groups and other, like the YMCA, they popped out these programs that aided the need for someone to watch their child. This year-round calendar is going to be super beneficial for people, especially in our area. Back in 1992, when NAFTA was signed between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, Mexico started to really struggle financially. Commodities like strawberries, pork, and corn started to not sell as well, and farmers weren't seeing their investment back. So Mexican families have migrated up here to typically agricultural-based states like Idaho. And so now we have a large portion of students that only speak Spanish or have limited access to English at home. And so we in this valley have implemented what's called LEP programs, or Limited English Proficiency Programs. And these programs take in students who are behind in content because they started somewhere else, or who only speak Spanish and are learning content on top of a language. And year-round calendars are really going to help benefit those students, because those frequent breaks make it less likely that they're going to lose the language over the summer, and that they're not going to lose the confidence that they have gained in practicing it over the summer, so they can move in and out of these programs much quicker. And that's the ultimate goal. And the agrarian calendar just can't accommodate for that need that we have here. And funding. Funding is probably the biggest reasons that most districts don't make the switch over. It can be expensive to pay for electricity or water or internet for a school, especially if the budget is limited or has little to no leeway. A study in 2012 showed that peers on the year-round schedule far out-tested the peers on the agrarian calendar, simply because they weren't having to waste all of this time at the beginning of the school year reteaching entire areas of content. And that's the biggest thing. That's the reason that children on the agrarian calendar are falling behind, is because they're being retaught curriculum over and over and over. And so with the year-round calendar, funding is going to increase theoretically because test scores are going to go higher, and categorical grants and block grants are going to become available to those schools that might be struggling financially. And funding comes 45% from a local level, 45% from a state level, and 10% from the federal level. And so that 90% from the state and local level are going to make grants and like donations to schools that are specific to this area. They're going to understand what our schools need, and they're going to understand what our schools are trying to do. And that's going to be the first step that districts are going to need to try and take. They're going to find the funding to allocate to this school. The second step is then going to be trying to look at which calendar is going to accommodate best for their area, whether it be the 6 weeks, the 9 weeks, or the 12 weeks. And then after that, it's all about implementation. We're all going to kind of band together and figure out, okay, this school's going to be able to do it and this school's not, or this town, so Nampa could start it and then Middleton could follow, things like that. So what you guys can do now is honestly just push for this change in your school system. Everyone here is in the public school system or has a child in the public school system, and that's something that you need to care about. If you want an education that's going to mean something to you later on in life, the year-round calendar is definitely the place, definitely the way that you want to go. So theoretically, that's something that we could pull off if we all band together and worked on it. So just reviewing what we've gone over, we've talked about the effects of summer vacation and how that results in the summer slide, and how that is an educational injustice that we're doing for our students. Then we talked about the formats of year-round school and how each format can benefit schools differently. Then we talked about the common problems of year-round school, the LEP programs here in this valley, and how this valley could benefit from having a year-round school. And then we talked about funding. Simply put, the year-round calendar the agrarian calendar cannot compete with the benefits of the year-round calendar, and it's definitely the way that our nation needs to start converting their public school systems.